So much can change in a year of cricket or even a week. Just ask the standout IPL teams from last year, KKR, SRH and the Royals, who were sitting pretty at the top of the table last year, but are now cemented as the bottom three of this year's IPL, even with an extra game played. Just ask Jason Sangha, who was captaining New South Wales only a few years ago, hitting 142 against South Australia, who found himself unable to get a game at the end of last season, and has now moved to South Australia and been their best batsman as they won their first red ball domestic trophy in 29 years. I mean, just ask me. I spent 8 minutes of my video last week talking up SRH in their batting, which has completely let them down in the last two games. And I spent 3 of those 8 minutes talking about a revival for Kishan, who has then gone on to score 2 runs in 2 innings. What a week of cricket. So I think the earlier I address it in the video, the better, because oh my god, I was not expecting the IPL table to look like this after 3 games. And I might have to concede that I have completely misread SRH in my last video, or maybe I was actually completely right. But let's talk about the bottom 3 quickly before we talk about the best final in Australia, probably since I was alive, and then of course Delhi and Punjab. In my last video, I spoke about my concerns for SRH, in the sense that I was worried that the lack of experience of Head, Reddy and Abhishek in the IPL might produce different results from last year. If I'm being completely honest, I was just worried that they wouldn't be able to back it up again. But then after watching them in their first game absolutely cook the Royals, with Kishan coming in and looking like $1 million scoring 100, I pretty much just admitted it was my pessimism. I probably was over worried for the team, and I should have just trusted in their skills and that they're getting better as players. A week later, and that script has flipped completely, and those players that I was talking about are just back in the spotlight. And let's be honest, both of these games have been lost off the bat. I would say both of these games have been lost within the power play. If not, they've definitely been lost within the first 10 overs of SRH's innings with the bat. Purely on the basis of losing too many wickets early and not really coming out of the power play with either a good run rate or set batsman. I feel like you can kind of get away with having one of the two. If you come out and you've either got both batsmen in but they haven't scored runs, then at least their eyes in and they can accelerate. Even if they score heaps of runs at the start of the power play and then Head and Abhishek get out right at the end and you got 2 new batsmen in after the power play, at least you have some runs on the board. At the moment, they're getting caught in, they're losing wickets, their run rate isn't great, and usually at the end of the power play, they're pretty much having 2 new batsmen at the crease. So I think you could probably exclude Head from this conversation because he has been pretty solid at the top, but Abhishek and Reddy have not looked anywhere near their best yet. Although it's not a complete worry, it is starting to get there. If I could sum up their form at the moment, I would actually use Abhishek's run out as an example. That run out was horrible cricket, but just a lack of game awareness. I mean, everyone knows in a T20 you should be backing up. Everyone knows the run is there. The fact that Head had to call it, kind of stopped 3 times and still made it into his crease easily before the ball hit the stumps means that Abhishek could have got there years ago. I mean, the skills are there, but it just seems like the application isn't, and it's just some really lackluster mistakes early on in the game, but it's costing them games. So let's talk about KKR, but just quickly, if you have been enjoying the long videos, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what you think. Also, if you want the flexibility of being able to switch between audio and video, head over to my Spotify. It is the same handle, 2 left hands, and that way you can enjoy both. Back to KKR, and what do I say other than what the... I actually feel sorry for KKR fans because they've been handed a complete mixed bag this season. I spoke about their first game already, so I won't harp on about that too much. But they then came back in their second game and played one of the most perfect games of T20 cricket possible. They kept the Royals to 150 with every single bowler chipping in with a wicket, all bowlers bowling in tandem really well, and then they chased down that total with more than 2 overs to spare and only 2 wickets down. So then I, like probably many other fans, were probably tricked into thinking, oh, maybe that first game was just a bit of a one-off. But then they got absolutely obliterated in their third game by a 23-year-old playing in their first game of IPL. It's actually hard to pinpoint the problems when you get hammered that bad, but when you're 5 for 45, you're always going to lose. But one thing that I am noticing, and it's been like this for a little while, but probably been hidden because the form's been so good. One of the problems with KKR was what I mentioned before, is I'm not completely convinced with their middle order. But then also one of their biggest strengths, which is sometimes leading to weaknesses, is their openers. Now, De Kock and Narayan are very aggressive players by nature, and when they are flying, they usually win games. But one thing that they do have a bit of a knack for, and probably more De Kock rather than Narayan, is that he's a bit a zero or hero. Similar to what I was talking about with Travis Head in test matches. Doesn't score 50 or 100, he's probably getting close to a duck. And in these games that they have lost, Narayan and De Kock just haven't got off to that flying start that they have in other games. And when they have got off to the flyer, like their second game, they seem to go on to win it. So it does seem a little dependent on whether these openers get runs at the start. It's obviously still very early to say anything, but there is the slight concern there that if the top order isn't firing, then the whole team isn't really firing. So the final team that has been quite subpar is the Royals. But out of all three teams, they are probably the team that least concerns me. They just need to start putting in team performances. And it's actually insane. It's actually weird. If you look at every single game, pretty much every Royals player has made a solid contribution once. But really, no player has made more than one solid contribution this season. I mean, Jaiswal is pretty out of form, but when you look at the other batsmen like Raina, Sampson, Parag, Jarrell, they all have scored at least once. And it's actually been pretty similar with the ball. I mean, against KKR, I thought Parag and Theekshana actually bowled really, really well. But then up the other end, you had Archer and Hasaranga, who looked so easy to get away that it didn't matter how tight they were bowling. There just was no consistency with the bowling, that it didn't matter how tight Parag and Theekshana bowled, they were getting away to Archer. But then you go to the CSK game and it's the total opposite. Archer and Hasaranga were unstoppable and pretty much won that game thanks to their tight bowling. So it's a bit of a strange one. Every player has played their part. They just need a few more players to have their on day on the same day, if you get what I mean. So I'm not too concerned over the Royals yet. I think, like I said, there's just been too many individual performances rather than a team performance, but I'm sure it's going to come, and they're on the winning track now. Now we need to go back down under and talk about my home country in Australia, because this Shield final was such a good moment, not only for South Australian cricket, but I think Australian cricket as a whole. And not only South Australian fans should be happy, but I think Australian fans of Australian cricket, fans of red ball cricket, should cherish this moment and also try to promote it. So if you haven't seen already, South Australia beat out Queensland in the Shield final to win their first trophy in 29 years. And there honestly couldn't be a better love story. If you don't know about South Australia's recent history, they've been essentially sitting at the bottom of the table for the best part of the last 6 or 7 years. And that is just off my head without checking stats. It actually could be a lot longer than that, but I know for a fact that they've been at the bottom half of the table, if not the bottom, for the last 6-7 years. Brian Harris, Australian fast bowling legend, joins the club, and in his first year as a coach for them, he gets them to a title. Nathan McSweeney, who has had a pretty tough couple of months after being brought into the test side as a bit of an outsider, a bit of a rogue pick, to then being dropped after a couple of games when other batsmen in the side were struggling just as much as him. He has then gone on to captain the team to a win, and I just think it's a great moment for him after a couple of tough months. Hopefully that just fills him with confidence and joy leading into the next season. And then there are also a few other players that I want to talk about, because they go and will continue to go unnoticed by the majority of the public, but I think they're just outstanding people in the cricketing world, and also, of course, outstanding players that deserve recognition. First of all, Alex Carey, one of the nicest blokes in cricket, according to literally every single person that has interacted with him, whether it be kids getting a photo, his teammates, coaches, different opposition players. I mean, everyone that has spoke about him always speaks highly of him. And he himself obviously went through a couple of years of turmoil with the whole Bairstow incident. He was kind of, I guess not scapegoated, but he was definitely the target of the attack. I think just him winning the tournament makes me happy. The fact that he's kind of transcended into this Aussie hero is so good in my eyes, and he's the perfect player that you should promote. I think He never complains. He's always kind. There's no harsh sledging. He seems to be a great teammate. And he's always remembered and prioritised his roots of South Australia. Amongst all the test players, only Carey and Khawaja played 5 games or more for their state. And Carey went on and scored 741 runs at 82 and ended the 5th highest scorer for the Shield. He has always made sure he could play for South Australia across multiple seasons, not just this one. And I think it's only right that he's a part of it. Another player that I wanted to mention was Sanger, who has been through it all as well the last few years. Like I said, at one point he was kind of the future for Australia in that middle order. He was not only part of the New South Wales squad in the team, but he even filled in to captain when the captain wasn't there. But then he went on a pretty horrid run of form, and it's a great reminder, these stories, of how finite a cricketer's career can be, because he went from captaining New South Wales to the end of last year being in New South Wales' second team. He then took a huge gamble and went to South Australia, where he's had to spend half of this season trying to prove himself just to make it back into Shield, which he did by scoring absolute bulk runs at the second tier. He then came back into the side and has gone on to score 704 runs in 6 games with 3 centuries and 3 50s after not scoring a single century since 2022. He is now lifting the trophy with 126 not out as one of the best batsmen in the tournament. I mean, what a moment for Sanger, and hopefully, again, moments like these hopefully push him on to become even better as a player. Then there's also players like Doggett, McAndrew and Lehman, who also had amazing seasons with the battle ball. I mean, Doggett took 11 for 140, which is the best in a Shield final ever, and 33 wickets for the season. McAndrew took 40 wickets at 20, which was the best in the comp. And then Lehman scored 750 at 44. Just seeing the crowd, just seeing the hype, just seeing these players that have been an essential part of this team for years to be able to go and win it against all the odds when they were picked to come last again, I think is just an amazing moment for Australian cricket, and it brought so much hype, and seeing all the crowd run onto the field was amazing. And hopefully fans remember this moment and how exciting red ball cricket can be leading into next season, and hopefully we can see better numbers at these first class games. So let's wrap up the day by talking about Punjab, Delhi and not RCB, because I am slowly learning that I'm not talking about a team on the day that they play. There is a reason I'm not talking about Pakistan today. I always end up cursing them, or they always make me look stupid. So Punjab Kings, or should we just call them Shreyas Kings, because what a signing he is turning out to be. Obviously, it's still early days, but my God, has he looked good in that middle order. I mean, he's slotted in there and already seemed to have fixed so many problems that the Kings had last season. But he's kind of come in there and he's like, I always picture him playing this like anchor role where he's up one end, holding up one end, turning over the strike. And he seems to also be doing that in this team. The only thing is he's somehow doing it while striking at almost 200. I mean, the batting has just been superb. But what I actually wanted to talk about was their bowling. I think their bowling has been equally, if not more, impressive. That game against Gujarat was a really tough one to defend, even though they had in the game when Butler and Sarasan were going together. They looked unstoppable, but I think it was really impressive the way Punjab just stuck to bowling to their fields, even when they weren't getting wickets, even when runs were going against them pretty thick and fast. They stuck to bowling to their fields, they stuck to bowling to their plans, and in the end, the run rate was too much, and the pressure went right back on the Titans, and they ended up winning pretty easily. They looked even better as a bowling unit against LSG last night, and did a great job at keeping the run rate down, which is one thing that has really interested me about the Kings this season. Most teams, when they want to ruin a team's run rate, they do it via taking wickets. It's the most simple, obvious, best way to do it. You get a batsman out that's scoring, a new batsman comes in, it's harder to score when you're new. But one thing that's really impressed me is Punjab have been excellent at keeping that run rate down, even when they're not taking wickets. Even when they're set batsmen in, they're finding it really, really hard to get runs. So they're definitely a team to watch out for this year, and I think they're probably the most impressive team of the season so far. And then we have DC, who I won't talk about too much because I do want to see them play again before I make too many comments on them. But they have just shocked me with how good they've been. But then when I look at the team sheet and look at the results, I sit there and think maybe I shouldn't be as shocked as I am right now to see that they're playing well. Because when you look at them as a whole, I think they've got a really balanced team. I mean, look at their bowling unit. They've got Stark as just raw early pace in there to get early wickets, disgruntle that opening lineup, similar to what he did last game. But then you've also got Kumar up the other end, who's a bit slower, but also a little bit more wily and a bit clever. And I think that mismatch of pace opening up is really, really handy. Then you also have the absolute genius of Yadav and Patel, who are two of the best spinners in the world in my eyes, coming in and bowling those middle overs to tie down the batsmen. So I really like the setup that they have. In terms of the batting, they have players like JFM, Perel, Patel, Stubbs, who can all go absolutely ballistic. But then you have the more experienced players like Duplessis and KL Rahul coming in between those players. And I really like that they've set it out that way. My only question mark is over the consistency of those less mature young players. Are they going to be able to do it week in, week out, every week? I'm not too sure, but I really think the way DC have set themselves up this year, they have a nice balance that I feel like if those aggressive players that aren't as consistent don't fire, then hopefully those more experienced, mature players like your Duplessis, your KL Rahul can come in and steady an innings if it isn't going according to plan. Anyway, if you are a DC fan, that's all hypothetical. They've pretty much been flawless so far, so you may as well enjoy the ride. But other than that, we're going to be back in a few days talking about the remaining teams, the halfway standing, and hopefully we're going to have some more positive news about Pakistan, because I was not risking talking about them today.